everybody. We are gathered once again this evening for our community roundtable. For those of you who have kindly joined us again, you'll remember that this would be the third one. Initially we talked about education, then we talked about first responders and healthcare delivery on an immediate basis one time, and tonight now we're going to talk about actually three subjects, those of which are close to everyone's heart and close to everyone's mind, and actually very close and important to this community. We are going to talk about COVID-19 in general terms, and we're also going to be talking about it from the perspective of Philip Health. We have a couple of folks here from Philip Health whom I'll introduce in just a moment. We're then going to track the construction of the Scotsman Living Center. We're going to get a progress update. We'll probably talk some about funding of that facility and how that's gone. And then we're going to wind up the hour with a discussion about our new foundation that we've created in the effort to gather long-term funds for the long-term survival and development of Philip Health. And so this evening we have a really nice panel with us. We have Jeremy Schultes, who is the administrator for Philip Health. Jeremy's been here, I think, 3 years probably, and actually was almost a godsend to Philip. We were kind of in trouble at one point, and Jeremy came with some new and innovative ideas, and Philip Health has actually done much better and thrived under his leadership. We have Denise Buckles, who is the Director of Nursing in the Care Center, and she is probably as close to anyone to being on the front lines with COVID-19 and how they handle it and how well she's done that. And then we have Vonda Hamill, who is a longtime leader in our community, been a past member of the school board, taken on a lot of leadership roles in our community, and she's our Fund Development Director. Did I get that title correct, Vonda? So at the end, we're going to talk about our foundation, but as we go along, we hope that this is a free-flowing discussion about COVID, about the Care Center, and about our foundation. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get right to it. And I've asked Denise to kick the ball off, if she would, and just kind of give us an update about COVID, how Philip Health has handled it, how we're doing, and just a general overview of that, Denise, if you might.
Absolutely. So we started this journey probably back March 13th, actually, was when our first day was that we had COVID. Kind of heard the word really in the state of South Dakota. And so the nursing home really took action, and I remember the first month of March, we watched webinar after webinar after webinar, just multiple hours of learning about COVID, learning how the country was dealing with it at the time, what to expect, what to prepare for. And so since then we've learned so much since March. I always said we were really grateful to live in the location that we do, in the middle of the country, in the middle of the state, in a rural community. It just gave us, the more information we have about COVID, the better prepared we are to help keep our residents safe and to serve our community. And so since then, everybody knows like the nursing home has been on lockdown, and about middle of the summer, we started to reopen. The state of South Dakota said residents in long-term care facilities need to see their families. We need to figure out what we can do to kind of help bring people together and keep them safe. So we've kind of started to follow the State Department of Health guidelines to reopen the nursing home, so to speak. And that has progressed so much since this summer. Earlier this summer, we were just allowing visitations only when your communities are in a certain percentage of a 7-day testing abilities, and now we have indoor visitation under certain circumstances, as well as a special device that we have in a special room with certain protocols in place, masking, social distancing, hand washing, and of course screening tools. And so Philip Health Services has really grasped the screening and the prevention and early recognition of COVID. And I can definitely say that since March, we've had some cases within the facility of staff and also of community members. And so we've really learned a lot since we've started to actually have more hands-on of COVID in the hospital side, and then as well as employee health with the staff. And so I think what we've learned is that early detection is essential in preventing outbreaks. And that certain things such as like masking, hand hygiene, social distancing, it can be effective to help keep the residents safe. And from the nursing home perspective, our number one goal is to keep the residents safe, but also to keep the staff safe as well. And then to have the residents stay in touch with their families to the best of our ability. So we've really had to reach outside of the box, think outside of the box, especially with construction next door. So not only did we get hit with COVID and we're closing all the windows, then they decide to close our front door. And now we're all kind of locked in there watching the construction happen from outside. But it certainly gives us some light at the end of the tunnel and some joy. It's a joy to see the building go up. It's so fun to watch the workers outside, and that has given the residents something to do and something to watch and something to look forward to. So,
Denise, I'm struck by your description of how you were impacted by it in March, and then it's kind of been an evolutionary process as you've gone through this, and I think it appears to me at least that at the early on it was just like lockdown. Nobody's coming in, which I don't think anybody probably liked very well, but yet it seemed to work. But now you've learned enough that you've been able to let some folks in, have a little bit of limited visitation, that kind of thing. Appears to me that the learning curve was pretty steep. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have learned so much. Webinars, policies, just dealing with the state. There has been so much that we've learned. I was on maternity leave for a short stint of the summer, and coming back, you just kind of hit full force and just jump back into it. And from what we said earlier, we were complete lockdown, not even allowing hairdressers in. I think even the public the same way. I remember Jeremy saying that he had gotten his first haircut from his wife, and then now here we're all back at the barber shop. So I think obviously the COVID numbers in the state are booming right now, but I do feel that we do have a self-testing machine in the nursing home. It's not 100% accurate, but it definitely, we have caught some positives on it. So I think that having the ability to have access to testing supplies has certainly helped keep our population safe.
Jeremy, from the administrative position, and I know you're on the first lines of it there because you're there every day, but can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that has been forced upon you as an administrator with COVID-19?
Yeah, and Denise is right, and you are too, Roger. There was a very fast stream of information that started in March, and it was like we're getting inundated from the CDC, from the South Dakota Department of Health, and we really stepped back and had to really look and assess what's right for our facility, what's right for our patients, what's right for our team members, what's right for our community. And I think whether it was a loved one being in the hospital or a loved one residing in the nursing facility, it was very, very difficult, I think, for families to go that length of time without residents and patients being able to see their family members. And so we've listened to family members. I know that Denise communicates probably a couple times a month with their families. We communicate with families that are of folks that are patients that are in the hospital. And now it's not that we've relaxed, but we've learned probably what works, what doesn't work. And I know there's a lot of debate about masking and distancing, eye protection. I would say probably all the above helps. And it's not 100% effective, but it's pretty effective because we are seeing where we've learned where we have staff members that maybe test positive and they've cared for patients in the hospital and been around their coworkers, but yet we've not transmitted from that person to others. So we are learning a lot. Healthcare has I don't think seen. I've been doing this since 1998, so I'm getting a little experienced. But I've not seen anything like it, and I hope that we don't see anything like it again because it really disconnected, I think, people from their loved ones, and that was probably the most difficult situation. I just had about 2 weeks ago, I was visiting with a physician in Rapid City that works with a lot of COVID patients. And my question to him was, it seems like maybe the virus isn't maybe as strong as it was. Is this thing fading a little bit? Because we're seeing good response to maybe therapy, drug therapy, and patients are being discharged from the hospital. We're not seeing as many people ventilated. And he said, well, we don't think the virus has probably changed, but our treatments have changed since March. And so we've learned a little bit about drugs like remdesivir, and we're using therapeutics differently. And I'm not clinical or medical, but that was good news to me, to know that we are maybe rounding the corner with some treatments that are really helping people.
Yeah. Jeremy, that's a perfect segue into my next question, and that is because it appeared, at least to me, that treatment is more effective. And so when you say that perhaps the virus isn't as strong, I wondered, is that really true, or have we just gotten better and more knowledgeable? And I think you answered the question by saying treatment is improving, and we're probably learning how to deal with it a little better, and so maybe all of the above, as you say.
I think so, Roger.
Okay, good. Jeremy, how about this? I'm going to stay with you for a second.
Sure.
There's been a lot of money that has come from Congress with respect to COVID in terms of PPP and all sorts of things, which have frankly been pretty beneficial. How about health care? Has there been adequate help on the health care level from Congress?
I'm not sure every hospital could answer that question the same way, Roger. I would say for Phillip, the CARES Act has treated us very well. It's allowed us a lot of flexibility to be able to spend money, whether it's on staff so that we have staff to provide the care that's being given, or the supplies and equipment that's needed. I know our Phillip Health Services Board has had some significant purchases this year, trying to equip the staff and just bring staff to us. It seems like on a weekly basis we have staff that is out because they've maybe been diagnosed with COVID or tested positive for COVID. And when those people are out, they have to be replaced. And sometimes we're bringing folks in from out of town, and those traveling people, staff members, get very costly. So the CARES Act has provided funding that has offset those costs. Remdesivir is a very costly drug, and I don't have a specific dollar amount for you, but it's very costly to go through a dose of a regimen of that drug. And so we'd be rather anxious if we didn't have some of that CARES Act funding, and we're real appreciative to have it.
I'm glad to hear that, because the story on the street, at least, was that when COVID first appeared, lots of care centers and hospitals almost locked down. And so the actual day-to-day business and the day-to-day operation, the expenses and the income were not there. And so it really is heartening to know that there has been a substitute source of revenue, although it's government money, but nonetheless it's there, and so you've gotten through this financially okay. All right.
We have.
Good. Wanda, I'm gonna ask you, and I will tell the audience I cleared this with Wanda before. I didn't want to breach any kind of confidentialities, but a member of Wanda's family experienced COVID.
Yes.
So why don't you talk to us a little, Wanda, about that journey?
Well, very briefly, it was a Friday when it was my son, and he was contacted by his friends that he had been in contact with someone who tested positive. So Jason and Carson and I went into lockdown at that point on a Friday. Carson developed symptoms on a Sunday. So 3 to 5 days after his contact was when his symptoms started, and his primary symptoms were just a head cold, stuffy nose, and then he lost his sense of taste and smell. So that's kind of how we know we had COVID in our house, because we did not go get tested. But he went, on Monday, I developed some stiff joints, neck, headache, that kind of symptom, but not terribly severe, and I was fine by Thursday. So I had a 3 to 4 day flu-like symptoms. Didn't take anything for it, just didn't do much. But Carson took a month to the day to get his smell and taste back. But we quarantined for 2 full weeks, and everybody, except for his senses, everybody else recovered fine, and we went about our business. So it was just our goal to just stay in and stay put, not mingle with people. My other son, Nick, doesn't live in our home, so but he lives 13 miles away, so he was our grocery runner and brought us food if we needed it or whatever we needed. But I wish everybody's households could have the experience that we had, because it really wasn't that serious. And I know that's not the case. A lot of people are very, very seriously ill with it. So it's nothing to be taken lightly. And we just felt our conscience told us to stay home. So we just stayed home. It was easy to do. We were cutting corn, so.
I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and I told him that I'd been exposed actually pretty closely a couple of times.
Yes, you
and I
have.
said, I'm very lucky. I didn't.
You have a
contact-
good immune system.
Well, I don't know. And he didn't say no. He said, no, you're not lucky, Roger, you're blessed. So
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly.
I will take that. But earlier, I'll tell those of you that are watching, we were talking about this, and Jeremy related an incident where a relatively young person was sick and recovering and suddenly perished.
Yes,
So it's
I
all
was
over
pretty
the
brave
spectrum.
at first. I mean, when Carson told us that he'd been exposed and felt really badly about it, he said, geez, I'm really sorry, Mom. And I said, come here and give me a hug and bring it on. I wanted to get it over with. And then after, it starts to hit your community and you start hearing more stories that you can relate to personally, and we did have some people who were very ill, then I decided maybe that wasn't the smartest thing I'd ever done, but it was too late by then.
Too late by
So
then.
I just am lucky I was mildly ill.
Denise, and Jeremy, I suppose that you guys track statistics, and I'll just relate another conversation. A friend of mine in Wyoming made the comment the other day that South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, and Nebraska are just getting kicked. Is that true? And are we worse than other states, or is that happening everywhere? I know COVID is on the rise, and perhaps it's from better testing, more awareness, lots of things. Are we just catching up? Or are we worse? What's your sense?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, maybe you don't know, and that's fair.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a daily update, Roger, and I don't have the stats for South Dakota. But I will tell you, a couple weeks ago, we here in Phillip, we were busy. We were busy with a number of COVID patients. The hospital was about full, and the emergency department was very, very busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was extremely proud of the team and the work that they did. They worked just diligently, caring for folks. And I whether it's the physicians, the nurses in the emergency department, the nurses on the floor. I know Denise and her team got to work out there for a while, and I think that was about 3 weeks ago that we were extremely, extremely busy. And then last week, it was kind of quiet.
It was.
And so I think across the state, I think if other hospitals are experiencing or other communities are experiencing what we're seeing, is we're having these maybe peaks and valleys where, and maybe there's something to be said about maybe some community type gatherings. You know, you hear lots of stories about people. We had a number of staff that, and I too was exposed to COVID during a wedding late summer. And we've had some staff that have picked up transmitted COVID at weddings. And so depending on what's going on in the community and how much people are distancing or masking, I really truly think makes a big difference.
Yeah.
We're really watching our kind of our tertiary care centers across the state, Sioux Falls, Rapid City, and because that's, if people need a higher level of care, that's where we go.
Sure.
That's what's available to us. And so we stay in daily contact with Monument and Rapid City. We also have a Vera e-care here. So if Rapid City is inundated and they don't feel that they could accept someone for that high level of care, we start searching elsewhere. And Avera has been a good partner to help us do that. We've had Sanford also say, yep, you can go ahead and send somebody to us. And that teamwork across the state has been significant. And I know the three systems have worked together on some projects as well. And the Department of Health is helping them coordinate that. So we stay in touch routinely. We're in very close contact every day with Monument. We know their numbers. We know the number of COVID patients they have. I think today the number in Rapid City was 80, and that number's high. And I think their census was about 250 patients throughout the hospital. And depending on how those various units are staffed with nurses and physicians and advanced practice providers, really depends on how many patients they can take, or how many discharges they've had, maybe the day before or the day of. So we stay in close contact. If someone does need that higher level of care, which we've had some people we've had to send, then those people are transferred. And so far we've been very fortunate or blessed. Very blessed to have that care readily accessible. Right. And the team, guys, the team here in Phillip, Krista O'Day, her nursing team, the physicians, the physician assistants, guys, we've really been blessed to have that team, because they've not shied away from this. There's probably other stories, other communities where, they really don't want to bring that virus into the facility. So they look for a COVID unit to maybe ship that person out to. Unless someone has needed a higher level of care, we've cared for those people right here in the community. So I might be a little bit biased, but I think the team's doing a great job.
No, I think that's justified, Jeremy. I don't know much, but what I know is that Phillip has handled this very well and seem to have gotten through it very well. Denise, your staff, are they weary? Are they holding up? Have you got enough staff? How's that? I mean, they're on the front lines right there.
Absolutely. So the nursing home staff, we have a really strong team, and I'm so proud of my nursing home team. I can honestly say that they care for those residents just like they were family. Sure. And since the family, I always say the family's been locked out, our nursing home staff has really embraced those to kind of be their family during this time. And so we're doing really well in the nursing home staffing wise. Everybody's been holding tight. Every day they're worried, but I think that means they're just even more cautious. Anytime they have a sniffle or a headache, they let us know, and so we can kind of rule it out and test. The state has also mandated us to have weekly testing during outbreak and stuff, so I have been swabbed multiple times, as my staff has, and they've been troopers about it. Not always very willing at first, but we've been doing this for a few months now.
You get used to it after a while.
It's just kind of like, it's testing day, guys, here we go. But the team has been so supportive to one another and willing to help out wherever they can. And I think that just speaks mountains for that group of ladies and a couple gentlemen down there. Everybody's really put their best foot forward, and they've done everything I've asked them or made them do. We've had a couple practice drills here and there, it seems like, but just super, super proud of that team and just think the care they give.
Yeah, I think that speaks mountains to you, Denise, and the way you manage that over there. Plus the character of the folks that we have in the Phillip, South Dakota of the world.
Absolutely.
Exactly,
They're
Vonda,
just like
small
family,
towns, and they are here to take care of their friends. We hear on the street now and then that the hospitals across the state are full, and so occasionally a patient might need to be transferred as far away as Yankton or Casper. Is that correct?
I don't have any record of that. I think when we've needed to place people, we've placed them within the state. There's times where possibly Rapid City might be pressured and say, we really need you to search elsewhere. I don't have any record of people going outside the state that I can recall, Roger.
Okay. And as we were visiting earlier, we were discussing the likelihood of COVID being with us forever. And Jeremy, you can be as specific or as vague as you want to here, I don't care. But Jeremy's response was that it all depends upon a vaccine. And I totally agree with that, Jeremy, totally. But you want to talk a little about vaccinations and where we're at and what we might get and how they'll be allocated, that sort of thing?
Sure. We sit on a weekly vaccine update call with the South Dakota Department of Health, and I know that our Department of Health is working very closely with CDC. They're working diligently when the distribution plan is being communicated with us right now. And so the Department of Health knows where there's freezer storage available. We have freezer storage available at our facility, and we are willing and ready to accept vaccine when it's produced and shipped. We heard today, I think Moderna came out with their efficacy of their vaccine. And so hopefully we have another supplier, but I think their production schedule is maybe about a month behind Pfizer. We're being told that, possibly in December, maybe around Christmas, there might be some vaccine available. But I think that depends on if it's approved for emergency use yet. And if it is, maybe the vaccine could be ready towards the end of the year. I don't know, that might be a little optimistic, Roger, and hopeful. But I will share with you, the CDC is working closely with national vendors because those national vendors have the ability to accept vaccine and distribute vaccine very quickly. So Phillip Health Services is contracted with Walgreens, and when Walgreens receives this shipment in South Dakota, we could contract with CVS Pharmacy or Walgreens. We chose Walgreens because of the location in Rapid City, and we'll be, when Walgreens is ready, we're ready to distribute that, to administer that to patients and residents if they're willing. And there'll be a prioritization of staff and at-risk people getting it. The emergency department staff, those caregivers, providers will be probably first and foremost. Long-term care staff and residents. I think the staff probably being number one and residents actually being right in line following the staff. And then after that, it's at-risk groups and a multitude of other priority folks. Those 65 and greater, oftentimes those people with comorbidities or illnesses, those people are going to be first and foremost. So that's what's being communicated to us. We're excited about it. We would like to get people vaccinated. There probably will be some questions of should I receive it? Should I not? Is it safe? Is it not? Right now, we're real excited to see that vaccine come, Roger.
I think that is an exciting improvement that hopefully is out there for us. I personally think we'll have COVID probably forever, but we'll hopefully learn to manage it and develop immunities and develop a vaccine. I'll date myself a little bit, but I can remember back when we took smallpox, and more vividly for me at least, polio. When I was a young lad, you had a shot, and I remember living in fear of polio because I knew of people who lived in iron lungs, and it was people who were crippled. When they came out with the polio vaccine on a sugar cube, that was huge for a guy who's afraid of needles. So, I think it's kind of an evolutionary process, and I believe strongly we'll get through this. It's a little rugged right at the point, but as we've kind of, I think, fleshed out here, you guys have done yeoman's work. I think Phillip Health deserves 5 stars, and so we're just delighted with what you guys have done. We've used up almost half of our time on that subject, and we may come back if we need to, or if we have some more questions, anything like that. But I want to switch over to the nursing home project, or the Care Scotsman Living Center project, Jeremy. And frankly, you won't be surprised to know this, but that's a frequent conversation, or frequent topic of conversation around the coffee table downtown. And the other day when the folks were shingling, people noticed that, and they noticed how quickly it was done and how well it was done, and so the eyes are upon you. So, Jeremy, could you just give us a little update on where we're at, and when the finish date is, and we'll talk about funding a little bit as well.
Don't tell them too much; you'll ruin my Christmas card.
I'd be happy to, Roger.
Yes, thank you.
So the rental construction crew's doing a great job. They're organized, they're professional, and they've just quite honestly, and I don't want to jinx myself, but this is the smoothest construction project I've probably ever been a part of. And so I hope Brad Burns, our architect, feels that way. And I hope the Phillip Health Services Board feels that way, because it's went really, really well so far. And we're probably, if I had to put we're probably about a fifth or a sixth done with the project. Keep in mind, this is a 3-phase project. Right now, what you see coming out of the ground, that is phase 1. In phase 1, we'll care for we'll be able to have room for 25 residents in phase 1. And we'll have the memory care unit in that space. There'll be a dining room and then 25 resident rooms. Some of those are private rooms, a lot are private, some are semi-private rooms. And when phase 1 is done, and we anticipate probably this spring, we're a little bit behind. Wrangell Construction said, we had probably a week or so, maybe a week and a half, where we had some rain delay this summer. They had to pump some water off the site when they were digging footings, and so that set them back a little bit. And then apparently the construction crew was not immune to COVID, and so there it comes up again. They had about a 14-day setback when we were framing the building, and so that set us back a little ways. So all in all,
Did they stop completely?
they did.
They stopped, okay.
They did. They stopped for about 2 weeks, and so anyway, and it was when the weather was fairly decent. So, and then I think the week after, maybe it was the week before, we had some snow or something. But all in all, we're about 30 to 40 days behind schedule, and there's going to be some setbacks. We would rather have a job well done than try to rush it, but they're doing stellar work. So that said, what you see right now, the north half of the building, which is the memory care unit, that is enclosed. And I took a picture of it this evening from the north side.
Yeah.
I just looked at it today. The north side, we have those windows in that memory care unit, those resident rooms. It's shingled, and the south wing is still being framed, and I didn't get an angle from the south side, but the north side is looking like a building.
Yeah.
It's looking really, really good. South half is underway. What folks don't see when you drive by, you don't see the work that's being done inside the hospital. And so we've had a crew of electricians, we've had a crew of plumbers that is taking utility service from the existing boiler room and electrical areas and feeding that over to the new addition. And all that's kind of just happening behind the scenes, which is great. We also have an electrical crew there that's updating the fire alarm system currently. And they're in the building pulling a bunch of red wires, and it looks like a spider web in there. So all that's going on. Plus, we are converting from a fuel heat to propane heat, and there'll be a boiler conversion, and that diesel to propane conversion will happen, I believe, in November yet. So we'll go into the winter heating with propane. So you'll see a couple propane tanks that have been installed behind, back by the staff parking area. And so we're excited about that. Hopefully that will reduce some costs to us in our operations. The plan is first week in December to have that building closed in so that we can get inside and start doing some of the mechanical work, running ducts, running plumbing, and then start to do some finish work. And then by May, hopefully we can hand Denise and her team the keys and they can start moving residents. So we are really excited, and I keep encouraging Denise and her nursing team, because our current space, it's tight, the windows are boarded up, sometimes it's like a cave. I know on the weekends it's dark because the portion of the building that touches the construction site, when people go home at night, all those windows have to be covered up, so residents don't have a view, and that's been a struggle. So residents have been dealing with it very well for what they're up against, and I think families have as well. The staff, they're keeping their spirits up, and we're just really looking forward to occupying a new space. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm
Diligence.
I'm frankly surprised that by May we'll be putting some folks over there. Is that what you said?
That's our hope. That's
fabulous. And Denise, I know this has been a challenge. You alluded to it earlier about the difficulty of dealing with both COVID and a new construction.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, obviously it's not been insurmountable, but on a scale of 0 to 10, has it been a 5 or a 9, or in terms of difficulty? I'm just curious.
Well, the first time they put the boards up on the windows back in June. I think we started like close to June.
right
That
away.
was
Yeah,
probably about a 10 on a scale from 1 to 10 to being the worst thing that's ever happened.
Okay.
So luckily, like Brett and Jeremy and I, we visited with the construction crew and came up with some compromises. So we were able to have some of that sunlight for the summertime. And so the construction team has been great with working with us and knowing that the residents are there and caring for their needs. And that's made it pretty tolerable. So despite that, that's probably been the biggest hurdle we've had right now, on top of not having windows at all for visitation along that whole east side. So we've been doing really well with it for the most part. The residents, you know, they know it's there and they know it's working on it. And it kind of, like I said before, it gives them something to kind of look forward to and something to watch. And I think they're all just very, very excited to know that that could be their new home over there. And they're just looking forward to it as much as the staff is. So
This might be a chapter in your book. Would that be a fair statement?
it's been kind of a year.
Yeah, I know. Well, as those of you who are watching know, we instituted a capital campaign a couple of years ago, which was very successful, and which Vonda was very instrumental in that. She was really one of the key players and has moved actually up the ladder a little bit.
Yeah.
That ended well, Jeremy, in large part because of Scotchman.
Yes.
But we are on track budget-wise. We'll get it paid for. We'll get our loans paid back as agreed. All that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we received USDA loan approval, and USDA is the primary mortgage holder. It would be about $5 million financed through USDA. The bank has been a wonderful partner because we had to, originally when this started, and Roger, you probably remember us better than I do, but when this originally started.
I'm afraid I do.
We really needed a partner. We really needed a partner because you know, it's just like building a house. You need a bridge loan to get to your end financing, and so the bank really stepped up and was willing to do that for us, and actually go out and find another partner because the amount of the loan was significant. And so it just so happens that the project did have a couple setbacks, and again, that was probably a blessing in disguise because USDA came back to us and they said, well, because of the CARES Act and some of the things that our economy is going through, we would like to give you the money up front after you and Ray did all the work to get us approved, Roger. And so that financing is it's available now through USDA. We right now, there's a facility contribution, there's our capital campaign from our donors that's being used to fund construction right now, and that will be in the amount of just over $3 million. I want to say about maybe 3.4 million. Then we will start tapping those USDA funds.
Okay.
So we're working through that, and that's a lot of detail, so I
Yes.
apologize about that, Roger. But we're excited. The project's moving forward. The funding is there. This project could not have happened without the capital campaign. And so really want to give a sincere thank you to our donors. We had some key donors on the project that pushed us up over the top. And Vonda, you've done a ton of work. Roger, you were instrumental in
Banked the checks.
you were instrumental in your leadership with the steering committee we had about a dozen people work
Yes,
on that,
you did.
on
You
that
had a great
campaign,
crew.
and we couldn't have done it without your leadership.
Yeah, that wouldn't be true, but I will just go back to the time we had a capital campaign when we added on and rebuilt or remodeled the hospital
Yeah.
originally. And at that point in time, I think 98 or 99% of those who pledged honored those pledges.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of you know that Vonda now tracks those.
Yes.
And would you say we're on track to do that again, Vonda? We're doing well?
I very rarely have to do anything but go get the mail and take a deposit to the bank. It's remarkable, the small town again. I really feel like the people in this area pay their bills, and they just look at that as another obligation that they have. They honor them. They might be late, but most of them, it's also a small town. Everybody knows everybody. And I can even look at some of those and say, oh, well, I know they've been ill, or I know they went on vacation, or I know they did, and I'll just wait patiently, and it will usually show up in the mail. So they've been, I would say we're sitting at well over 95% for paybacks on pledges. So that's been great, yeah.
That's exactly what I would have expected.
Yeah. And we were warned off of that a little bit when they first started talking about the pledge procedure. I think at that time Bob Harvey was the director, and he said, you know, you need to be careful there. And about 25% of what people will pledge, you need to not bank on that. And I think he was corrected, and they said, and the board said, or the capital campaign said, they'll pay. That you can bank on that money, and we have been able to do that.
The people of Hockin County and the surrounding area are folks who are going to meet their obligations.
Yes, they absolutely do.
And maybe even better than that, you guys, is the fact that the folks who helped feel a pride of ownership in
They
that
do.
facility.
Mhm.
It's not Phillip Health's, it's not Phillip, it's ours.
Yes.
And the folks believe in that, and they've stepped up and helped. And my heart many times was warmed, as Wanda and
Yes.
Jeremy, I know yours was too. So
Yes.
it's been just a huge success, and it really does feel good to
Well, and I
watch that
think
go up.
it's notable that when you built the hospital, they set a goal, and the goal was shattered. And we set a goal, and then we set another goal, and then we set a third goal for this capital campaign, because the needs kind of kept changing. But even when we set that far stretch goal that the campaign council kind of, okay, we'll go get more, even when we set that, we exceeded that by quite some, amount. And I have to always tell the story about Mark Lyons. He works for Casey Peterson. He was the accountant, is the accountant on the campaign, and he did the feasibility study. And he said when they told us what they wanted to raise, $2.1 million in local capital funds, I never thought for a minute that would happen. And he said, so I was very, very leery of that. And he said 6 weeks later when we met again, you were already over $1 million. And the campaign hadn't even launched yet. And so he said, I'll never underestimate Phillip or Phillip area ever again. He was very impressed and continues to be by the support that we get locally.
I'll always remember too, Bob Harvey said, in virtually every campaign, there will be one gift that will just surprise you. And
Yes.
and at the end of the day, I think we had 3 of them.
Yes, we
folks
did.
who just went over the top and really met the. So, Jeremy, it really is heartening when somebody goes by and sees that, or when I go by and see that. So it's a huge thing for Phillip, and kudos to you, because I was on the board at that time. The amount of work and the time and the frustration that it took to get a USDA loan was almost insurmountable. And I think, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Jeremy, but I can almost bet there were times you said, wait a minute, I don't know if this is worth it.
No, I think I've always thought it was worth it. I just didn't know you guys would make me work that hard.
That's why I got off the board.
So some lengthy board meetings. Just want to give you a little bit more detail. Roger, this morning I took a call from our state association and our healthcare association, and they said, Jeremy, we are working with a group of representatives that are really trying to find funding mechanisms to get some nursing homes built across the state of South Dakota. And so we're coming to you with some questions. And what I was thinking when he was asking me these questions is you just need to find some people like we have in Phillip, because our community is they have a special way of making these things happen. And they make jobs like my job, or the steering committee director, your job, Bonda.
Yes.
They many hands make light work, and it was really, really special to see our community come together on a project like that and see the value in it, and then magically make it happen.
Yeah.
I get a little bit emotional when I think about it, because I don't know any other place that would really happen.
And especially, and those of you who are listening may not know this, but at the time we were doing that, the nursing home industry in and of itself was struggling.
Yes.
And a number of care centers took bankruptcy while we're trying to expand and asking folks for money.
Very unusual.
And we had a unique situation in a unique area, and it worked. It worked beautifully. So thankful every day for that. So.
Well, Phillip's a great little town. They did the same thing building the school. They just know what our needs are. People come together. They passed the general bond, for the school. They came together. They gave to the capital campaign so we could have a nursing home. We just want Phillip to keep thriving, and I love it. I love living here.
That's a great point, Wanda. we got some minutes left, but we're gonna talk a little about the foundation, and I was thinking about this on the way in. The foundation, in a sense, is the future of Phillip Health.
Yes.
That's a pretty broad statement, because there are a lot of everyday things that go on and make it stable and make it viable. But if we don't think about the future, that's got us in trouble. And so that's why we created a foundation. Vonda is the director of that foundation, and Vonda, why don't you just give us a skeletal view of that? I will tell you this, we are in the beginning stages of that process, but we have our eye on the ball, and
Right.
so Vonda, just update us a little.
Well, I think it comes to mind when we started the campaign for the nursing home that, the hospital is getting close to 20 years old now. What would have happened to your funding situation for the new build for the nursing home had a foundation been established 20 years ago and those gifts maybe been sitting there in 20 years? What would they have accrued? What would you have had? And what would that capital campaign for the nursing home have looked like? Would it have been a lot different? Maybe we wouldn't have been looking for 2.1 or 2.2 or $2.4 million if we would have had a foundation established then. So I think it's a good move to, and what a foundation will do is and it's not Phillip alone, it's not Phillip Health Services alone, it's Phillip area, and it'll encompass Kadoka Clinic, Kadoka Nursing Home, all of the entities here in Phillip, and it'll give some long-term funding for not necessarily capital campaign projects. The hospital is 20 years old, it's going to be needing some updating, and so if we can get a good solid foundation going, get some money in there and let that start to accrue, then when there is an update that needs to happen, we don't maybe have to go out and pound the pavement for that. We'll have that foundation sitting there and we can draw on that. The application process itself right now, the biggest thing is to get the 501c3 nonprofit status established, and that is just a very long detailed process with the IRS that I had never even heard of it until I got this job. And there's about a 40-page application that goes, just has a ton of things that they want to see. You have to register the corporation with the state, and then you just start documenting. It's been a journey for me. I've enjoyed it. One of the things I had to do was go back through all of the archives of the newspaper and just try to find all the goodies that why Phillip Health is deserving of this, of being able to have a foundation. So all the awards, all of the neat articles that have been in the paper. Thank goodness we have a paper that is right here locally and documents all that stuff, usually on the front page, so I didn't have to look very hard for it. It was right there. And that was one of the things that I've had to do. Just a lot of detail work, what the service area is for Phillip Health, and how many ER visits do you do in a year? How many of those are car crashes? How many cars travel the interstate? It's a crazy amount of detail. But once that's all in, and there's a gal in Kansas City that actually has the company that Bob Harvey, our director, worked for. She's gonna have the chance to see it all. Actually, she's got it right now. She'll see it all, and then they'll ship it off to the IRS. And then it's a matter of 3 to 6 months before they'll grant that, usually, maybe faster if we've done our homework right. And we'll be ready to roll and hopefully get that ready to accept gifts in about the same time the nursing home opens. That's the goal.
I could envision a celebration.
I can too.
Well, as you're talking, I'm just thinking back, and a lot of this occurred before I moved to Phillip, but Hans P. Peterson sold his ranch, or gave his ranch, and,
Yes.
and built the initial hospital.
Yes.
Mrs. James O'Grady, she was ill. Her husband sat by her side, as did one of our MDs, and he was so touched by that, he gave a large portion of his ranch
Yep.
to us. James O'Connell
O'Connell.
gave a lot of money to us.
For continuing ed, yep.
Raymond Talty and the
Talties,
clinic.
yep.
Those are just prime examples of folks who had the vision and the foresight and the goodness of heart
Right.
to look at Phillip Health and
Right.
say, you know what, we need to make a difference. And so at the end of the day, I believe those are the kinds of folks that need to be talking with you, Wanda,
Sure.
and thinking about what they
Well,
can
and
do
we're
to help.
hoping eventually, once we actually have the foundation status established, to do some more educating I believe it was, I'm not sure when you did it, because I wasn't on board then, but there was an estate planning seminar that was hosted here in Phillip. It was very well attended. Pat Getzinger from Gunderson Palmer came down and gave it. And it's just amazing. I had to attend one as part of my training for this job, and I was surprised that, there's a lot of benefit to the gifter as well as the foundation when those gifts occur. And so it can be a very symbiotic relationship if it's done properly. And we're really hoping to be able to bring those people back into the community to set those seminars up again and train people and educate people into how this can work, because this can be a really fantastic thing for the area if we can launch it right.
That really is a great point you make about it being a beneficial relationship
It
for
is.
both sides. And I don't pretend to know a lot about that, but I know there are ways in which a donor can give a large portion of his estate to a nonprofit like Phillip Health, and yet not really affect that part that he leaves to his heirs in that great
Yeah, there's kind of a
level. So
nonprofit bucket or a tax
Yeah.
bucket, and you're gonna put it in one of those buckets. But your estate is going to cost your estate that much one way or the other. So if you gift it to something like a foundation, it can live forever and continue to give long after you're not able to be here, so.
And so that's why we've started a foundation. We just are looking forward to help, obviously, looking forward to donations. We're looking to the future.
Yeah,
And we feel like the future is really very bright.
I think this is a great place to have a foundation. They've already got a proven track record here.
Might I say, if you have to get COVID, Phillip's the place. You
That's
suppose?
right. We're dealing.
You really,
It's
you
going
really
well.
are trying to attract them, but, I'm just heartened by your stories, you guys. Denise, you're on the front line there every day. And my hat is off to you and your staff.
And not
You've
everybody
done-
can walk up and down the halls freely from the outside in, but I get to pop in and out of the hospital to do what I do. And everybody's still smiling and everybody's still just doing their job and working, and nobody's having a breakdown yet, so I think they're doing remarkably.
It's really amazing to see. Krista and I always kind of joke about she's bringing COVID in and we're keeping COVID out. So I think the facility as a whole, and the clinic nurses and the doctors and the radiology team in the lab, like everybody's been working overtime to care for the community. And just like you said, it's what we do and it's what we're here for. And I think being a healthcare worker, you just know you're here to serve, and so that's what we're doing. We're serving our community. So.
Hypothetically, if someone shows up in the emergency room, do you assume they don't have it, or assume they do have it and test? How do you handle that? That's an unknown.
We assume you do until we rule it out.
That's what I wondered.
Yes.
And you look at symptoms.
Yeah, okay.
And there's a whole host of symptoms.
Uh-huh.
But,
Yep.
Roger, before you close, we'd like to present something to you.
Okay.
So we want to thank you. This is from Vonda, Denise, and I, and all the folks that were on your steering committee. We want to thank you for your leadership, and we've been meeting to get that to you. And so,
Can
if
I-
You can.
You know what, I did not expect anything, and I will just say, our campaign committee was absolutely a fabulous group. I think as we set about the business of choosing that group, you almost think a little bit about divine intervention, because we had top shelf folks, and it just worked.
It did
People
work.
were-
But
were
somebody
willing
had to lead the crazy mob,
Well,
and you
but
did
know
that,
what?
so.
Sometimes if you can just get the best people, it's easier to be a leader, so. Oh my gosh, you guys. Look at that, Jeremy. Can you guys out there see that? I don't know, it's a nice pulling breast collar.
Urban Jones special.
Yep.
Look at that.
Irv Jones put that
Well, you
together
guys, I
for
don't
you.
deserve that, but my heart is
Yes,
warm.
you do.
And I will tell you, I'm going to be horseback helping wean some calves in the morning.
Good.
There you go.
I may
Coming
use
in.
this
Try
right away,
out.
so I don't deserve that, but I appreciate it
Sure you
greatly,
do.
so
Thank you, Roger.
thanks a million.
Yes.
Well, you know what, you guys, we've about reached the end of our hour. Anybody have any closing comments or thoughts? This has been a 5-star panel in my view. You guys are knowledgeable, articulate, experienced. Just been a great discussion this evening.
Good. We appreciate our community. We appreciate
Yeah.
the support. If you ever have any questions, stop in and see one of us. we're here, we're available, and happy to visit.
And that might be a message that I'd leave out there, that if folks have questions or concerns, any one of us would be willing to address any of those. You really have the best of the best right here tonight, the folks that know exactly what's going on, and if they don't know, they'll find out.
I've had a few people ask me where I'm located, just in case you didn't know. The foundation offices and the capital campaign offices are no longer on Main Street. They're located up at the old elementary school. It was Pat Westerberg's old office down on the southeast corner. I have a white storm door, and that's where you'll find me when I am in town. I'm only in town about 1 day a week, but I forward the calls to my cell phone, so all you have to do is call that 859-2342 number, and you'll find me sometimes out in my yard, but I'm around.
Okay, anybody, anything? Denise, you good?
I just want to say thank you for all the community for recognizing that need for the nursing home and for the support that you guys have done, and for those families and the residents down there, and for those in the future who will utilize it. And we're certainly looking forward to it, and we can't thank everybody enough for making that happen.
Yes. They deserve
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
It's going to be nice.
And thank you for having us tonight, Roger.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
appreciate that and the opportunity.
Absolutely. So
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, and we're gonna wind this down. As those of you who are watching know, we do this once a month. It's titled the Community Roundtable, and frankly, it's a brainchild of Ralph Giebus with a lot of help from Pastor Kathy and some others. I think that 1 month from now, whatever the third Monday is, we're going to talk about ag financing, the difficulty of being a farmer and rancher, something that's very pertinent to this area. And so I think that will be a lively discussion, and I can envision, not me particularly, but perhaps some retired bankers, perhaps some implement dealers, some farmers and ranchers who are on the front line every day. So I believe that's what we have to look forward to next month. And then anybody who maybe has an idea of something that we might talk about or discuss or flesh out, get a hold of Ralph or Pastor Kathy or myself, and we'll talk about that in the future. So again, you guys, great job. Thanks a million for being here. And those of you who are watching, we appreciate that. I will tell you that we've had somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 500 folks each month watch this presentation, so we're heartened by that. We think that what we're doing is worthwhile. We appreciate your involvement, your interest, and so with that, we're just going to wish you a good evening and sign off. Thanks a million.